I will not be as smart as somebody of my, equivalents in another country.
Every technological advancement triggers an arms race, right? The third one, and this is a radical tech shift, of course, is about AI and superintelligence, and everything it impacts.
The memory prices have gone up literally, 700% recently.
That the shortage will most likely continue up until 2030.
Crazy.
Right. So, what we are experiencing right now,
India's entire IT export industry is basically now a chat GPT portal. And that affects us in a big way because, so I think the doomsayers are just blowing everything up because,
and the person said that, oh, we're down from 5 to 4 engineers now. That was not cry for help.
Yeah.
That was a pseudo gloat.
Is what is making them even dabble in something like building an alternative to an MRI. And that I feel is going to be the greatest thing. Actually just band together and be like, hey, actually we can just do this ourselves and we can just build the shit that we want to build. This is the beginning. Pace yourself. It will, if you feel like you're lagging behind, this is just the beginning. Wait and watch. There is way too much to unfold.
Table number 3, we did one more previously as well, which I think we're going to upload very soon. But a lot of the discussion in the world of AI is happening around models. But I think there's a parallel story that is brewing up, which is supply. Supply chains are getting clogged up. And it's partly because of the Iran war also in some industries and commodities. But I think in the world of AI, and especially RAM, memories, chips, lithography, and all of these things which power our digital devices, where we spend most of our time on, is getting constrained. So I think this chat, and we're convening the roundtable again. It's 3 friends talking. We're going to miss Dhruv today, our in-house professor who's busy with something. But we wanted to get this out because I think there's just so much happening. I think more recently, I think people might have been affected by the world of Apple, where people have reacted to how the prices have gone up. But I think they don't understand what this also brings about. I think how to think about devices, compute, inference, all of these other things, because everyone reads about these fancy models on Twitter. Fable 5 is back, and Gemini is releasing something new, and OpenAI is doing 5.6, and how this is becoming the new warfare, where people are getting controlled by governments to control their closed source models, which US is heavily inclined towards. So it'll be exciting to see. I'm going to run through some slides as well, and we're going to discuss all of this together. So we have Srijan and Kashish, 2 of the familiar names from our first roundtable as well. Yeah, I wanted to think about AI in not binary terms. I think what people say is AI is going to replace everything, AI is going to change the world, but I think the answer is somewhat not binary. I think it's on a spectrum where there are, of course, different effects. Models are getting better, faster, cheaper. That everyone is aware of. Cost is collapsing, agents are doing real work, but supply chain and markets are getting repriced in real time. The memory prices have gone up literally, 700% recently, which is affecting anything that we use. And that brings about interesting order of changes in many other things, right? So we're in a super cycle in terms of CapEx and stuff. And then the nationalism model also kicks in. It's sort of like the Sputnik moment where when Russia is launching that Sputnik, and then everything in US is getting towards how can we build self-reliance. I think countries are thinking about that more actively now. So we're somewhere between second and third order right now, the second and third order of changes. But yeah, have you guys thought about this more deeply? Do you guys worry about the world that we're coming in, or it's just more calm for you?
Well, I'll just share a very quick woe, because definitely do enjoy history a lot, right? And I've studied World War One, World War Two more than I'd like to admit in general. But every technological advancement triggers an arms race, right? So the Industrial Revolution led to literal physical, arms. We're talking about guns, tanks, etc. Very pivotal in the early 20th century, right? And anyone that had the highest supply and the supply chain to really kind of make all of this happen clearly had a pretty big edge, which is why US kind of because they were offshore and not directly impacted by the terrestrial war, of course, ended up kind of really raking into that that industrial revolution, and General Electrics, Motors, etc. All these kind of companies came about. Then the second cycle was all about, of course, race to the space, right? But more than that, it was about missiles. It was about, and what we basically generally kind of know it as Cold War. The third one, and this is a radical tech shift, of course, is about AI and superintelligence, and everything it impacts, in our day-to-day consumer life. So clearly, this is in our modern history, most likely, and I don't know if there are like some middle layers to like some mini arms race as well, but literally, I think the third advancement of an arms race, going literally into the general AI sphere. And as like Twitter has been buzzing over the last few weeks with Fable getting blocked, a call for sovereignty in AI models in India. It's good that we are at least talking about it, even though we're talking about it in a bubble, right? And of course, the general populace most likely does not care about any of this. They have their own kind of battles to deal with. But so yeah, I mean, at least we're not talking about this post facto, right? At least we're talking about it as of today when it's actually happening around us. One could argue that it's already late, right? And maybe that's a very separate debate entirely. But yeah, I mean, you do end up thinking about it, but then बातें happy रह जाती हैं basically.
I think also this is one of those things while you were saying, right, like the space race and the Cold War and any of even like after the Industrial Revolution, for instance, like they were more to do with a geopolitical lens on the sense of it was countries versus countries, right? But today with AI, it is generalized intelligence, right? Like we all of us are literally using this on a day-to-day basis. So tomorrow, if we do not have access to let's say Fable or to Anthropic's latest model or whatever, and you see like Palantir and NVIDIA just did that deal, right, for this, and nobody knows where this is going. And essentially, like what used to be the affecting, of course, like war affects everybody. There's not even a question about it, right? Again, it's the worst thing that can happen to a country or whatever else it is. But this is literally like technology getting blocked. Like I will not be as smart as somebody of my equivalents in another country if their model is better than mine, if I don't have access to intelligence. And that is just like,
yeah, at some point, like, I mean, this will be like you don't have access to PowerPoint. Like America's made PowerPoint
exactly
to PowerPoint, Excel, or like the basic tools.
Yeah.
Because everyone has to have access to all of these models to just be on the same level.
Same level, exactly. And the more generalized intelligence is sort of boxed in, and which it will be, because this is power at the end of the day, right? Like if you're looking at an arms race, this is literally what is going to be the new oil or the new whatever else it is that you're looking at, right? Like if and rightfully so, right? And we can go into one more detail about, let's say, a blocker like energy, for instance. And if somebody, for instance, if the US solves for energy and fission comes about, and if I strongly believe that it will come about in the next few years, however long it takes, because humans are generally good at backing ourselves, like we're good at backing ourselves into a corner and then figuring a way out of it, right? And of course, we need more AI and we need more data center than we need more energy. But if, for instance, the US or China or anybody else, for instance, builds fission or solves the energy crisis in whatever manner, they will naturally want to gatekeep it till they can build a significant advantage before it goes on to the rest of the world, which is what historically, I think, Ashish, you also said, right? And like this is what has happened historically as well, where people will gatekeep tech for a while till they can get a significant advantage and then release it to everybody else.
And so we'll come to that in a bit also, because open and closed model is a big debate that's raging on. Like I think DeepSeek was the first prominent one where, like, I think everyone said the closed source and open source debate, I think, popped up then, right? I mean, and Elon Musk just named OpenAI because they wanted open to be a key part of the team. But and the All In podcast guys have been actually discussing about this, because Jason said that OpenAI and all of these labs, like I think they will eventually move, I mean, up the value chain as well. They are doing right now the foundational stuff, and they'll eventually start building apps of their own. Like, and you're seeing this. I mean, Claude and Anthropic are now doing science work. They're doing personal finance work. So slowly, like I think they're moving up the value chain where they want to eat up any of the app stuff, and that also puts India's position into question, right? What are we truly building? Like I think Sarvam is doing great work. There are a lot of voice models that have come up. We've represented some of them on TON also. But where do you think like India की position कहाँ है यहाँ पे?
Yeah, at this point of time, at least, if we look at generally what's being built out, we are just, unfortunately, we are consumers of all of that technology that's getting shipped out of the valley, right? And I am not sure if we're gonna make that leap anytime soon. Of actually, like that transitional gap from consumption to production. Because as we already discussed, right, like gatekeeping is a possibility that we've already seen. Precedence has been created. We don't know how often will this happen now in the future. There is already a massive distance and a gap between everything that's even happening in US. China is a black box of a deep state, so I mean I think they run their own race anyway. There's already a gap to cover. And in this case, this is an exponential increase. It's not even a linear gap trend, right? So, I mean, every single day that goes by, there's a new model that's coming up. Every hyperscaler that is effectively an American company is sourcing contracts with the supply chain more amount of years at more price arbitrage for any other entrant to come into the picture. I don't know. I hate to be the pessimist. I'm not a pessimist at all. I mean, usually in general, but looking at like everything that's in front of us, I just it doesn't seem like that we're actually poised to make any massive moves from being a consumer to actually being a producer. It requires intense capital, intense investment, and intense amount of like talent coming back and building this out.
And that also brings me to the point where now I think India Semiconductor Mission is getting started. The 2.0, they're doing subsidies and they're setting up big plants like in Dholera. Tata is doing a bunch of things, and all those JVs are happening now where we're going to start manufacturing chips of different capabilities. So I think it's still going to take 2 to 4 years to catch up. And I don't know in the world of AI, like how many years that is. Like, I mean, that's something like Interstellar, where 1 year on that planet is like elsewhere.
Yeah.
So AI is playing out that way where, I mean, we're going through so many different shifts that even if you build this capacity now and to prepare for the 4 or 5 years down the line, I don't know how much of that will be relevant, because we might come to a world where, I mean, these hyperscalers have built like such insane capacity that they have oversupply of compute. Like, I mean, what's happening with Grok and XAI, right? They're supplying to Anthropic now. Their Meta has oversupply of compute as well, where they're going to start renting it out because they don't have that much demand for their inference of their models itself. And Ramageddon is taking off. Like, I mean, everyone saw this because, I mean, everyone's using Apple products, but chip prices have gone up by 700% in 4 years, like RAM, it's specifically. And RAM now forms, or memory is becoming a huge part of the products that we use, because on-device compute and basic on-device models will start coming up as well, because yeah, not everyone can afford, like, and I think companies globally as well are now repricing or rethinking their AI strategy, because wo kya rata, everyone's spending on OpenAI, Anthropic, but outcomes utne nahi aa rahe the. So return on investment is going to be a question that they start asking. And all in guys, including Jason and Chamath, have said that people will start using the the open source models more, because they want their firstly control the data. Sovereignty of even data within the company is important, and also controlling the cost, because even the Palantir interview,
Yeah.
what saying, I
Same.
think he
Yeah.
went on a rampage where he said
Yeah.
that it's all shit basically.
And,
We'll have
and,
to start
and,
thinking,
and it's true, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want my data to go out anywhere. Like, why would you? And especially when you're looking at at Department of War or whatever else it is, like the defense, or like this is highly sensitive data. Why would you want it to be able to be going out, even though whatever safeguards are there, not there? We all know what safeguards actually exist, right? Like, if Fable could crack, or if Mythos could crack, half the government's data is over there. What is stopping it from cracking anything else? So it is a very real fear, and Yeah.
And these guys have 650 billion in AI capex in 2026, right? And not that old. We remember that time when OpenAI earlier this year was, I mean, making these agreements with like literally everyone to like, I mean, they have like some over 1 trillion in spending commitments. So, I mean, the three basically big manufacturers are Samsung, SK, Hynix, and Micron. And they're literally, I think, pushing their supply to all of these players, locked in for multi-year contracts. Now, Apple wants to buy China chips, which they're lobbying in the US for. So, all of this is getting repriced in many different ways. So, I think these are very interesting thinking points. Ki, how does the world actually look when these hyperscalers have locked in supply for multi-years, like multiple years?
And the weird part is, it's as you said, right? It's like the interstellar timeline. Like this is all happening in real time, where nobody knows what is going to happen in the next. Forget 3 months. Like nobody knows what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. And it's your guess is as good as mine. I mean, Apple is a company that has never really increased prices in that sense, right? Like if you remember, like for the past decade or so, an iPhone has always cost $1,000, and whatever that $1,000 means, it doesn't matter. It's $1,000 for an iPhone, right? Like, and this has been standard. And if Apple has had to do this, and they have gone ahead and actually done this with sitting with whatever $2 trillion of cash in the bank, I mean, you can just imagine what is going to happen. Nobody knows.
Yeah, and full
This
part of
is already, by the way, like, of course, it's impacting already, right? Like, I mean, as a company, you have to procure devices. If you go to Amazon right now, you're not going to find a MacBook Pro 16 gig RAM, 500 GB storage at all. That's completely out. It's out of offline stores, it's out of Amazon, everywhere, more or less.
Wow.
Immediately, what you are being presented with is a 1 TB RAM variant. Sorry, 1 TB storage variant with 32 gigs, right? So even for like normal day-to-day Aam Janta, right, like folks running companies, etc., your device costs are now just like 2xing basically overnight. Right. So I mean, it's already there. It's already trickled in, and it's. But I mean, if you look at the reports as well, and I'm trying to find the right quote, but basically, this is not going to get solved for at least the next few years.
Yep.
Right. The approximations are that the supply chain crisis, and this is directly coming from SK Hynix CEO Kwak Nojung, that the shortage would most likely continue up until 2030.
Crazy.
Right. So, I mean, what we are experiencing right now is basically just like, the stepping stones where people are now noticing these things. What happens over the next 4 years is my question.
I
Dude,
saw.
is buying RAM a better trade, or buying stock of these companies a better trade right now? Like stock.
Dude, you will not believe it. 2 days ago, I saw somebody someone's tweet saying that, hey, I made all of my friends buy Mac Minis, and over the past 6 months, I made like 20 of my friends buy Mac Minis, and now they're all worth double. And so now we're trying to figure out how to actually sell them and make money off of it, or what do we do? Another friend of mine was specking up his MacBook, like whatever Pro 16, this thing, and it was coming out to be, I think, $5,500 or something, and now it's worth, I think, $8,000 after like in a week's time or whatever. And he's just like, what do I do? And another thing to think about, just off the top of my head right now, is that is the $2,500 extra that you're going to be spending on your computer, can you make that up and compute by using local models over a 5-year life cycle of your computer?
If the specs are the same, but there are actually, I saw a decentralized compute offering where you can rent out compute on your computer to a cloud network which is decentralized and start making money. Like, I mean, crypto has been trying to do this for storage and Filecoin and bunch of other projects as well, where if you have capacity at home, you can start making money. And I think the laptop will, I read that even if you use it at like 40% personal usage, the remaining 60% you can literally rent it out for 60% of the time and make back the cost of the laptop in 1.5 years. So people are going to find ways like this their purchases.
Unless you're a Gmail user running a Chrome browser, because that one tab itself is taking a GB of RAM right there, by the way.
Again, honestly, how many people actually need a laptop that powerful? Like, I think the devices that I'm using as well are way too powerful for my usage. Like, most of it is literally just on cloud. I mean, ChatGPT, OpenAI, like all of that stuff that I'm using is mostly on cloud. So maybe we'll have to think our baseline device requirement also.
100%. We recently
But
just started procuring the MacBook Neos. I mean that's the entry level latest variant, and we've procured it for like non-engineering, non-product, like just resources per se. And honestly, it's holding up really well, right? Like that itself is like in INR around 55, 60K, more or less. That totally works. Of course, the day you actually want to run like an agent of sorts, etc., on top of it, I'm not sure if that's been pressure tested at all. But for majority of the long tail users, something like that will totally suffice. And MacBook Airs themselves are so powerful, right? But of course, now if you're talking about like coding, where we talk about one coding session to run for at least an hour or two, right? Then clearly when a MacBook Air is going to get heated up, and वो Pro ही चाहिए. But now वो 16 gigs और वो है नहीं, तो अब क्या, like you want to pay 2.5 lakhs, 3 lakhs upwards just for that.
Tell me, if you're not running an image gen model, but like something like Hugging Face or Llama, where you downloaded something like a I don't know, some billion parameter model on local running. Have you tried that on your devices? That is something you guys should try. Like I think even the Apple this thing you can download. I mean, their private compute wala model is pretty good. Like I mean, you can use it on a flight. You can use it.
It's actually pretty good.
It's actually pretty good. So you can solve most of the queries and like the basic document summarization and stuff that you do even on device as well. Your laptop heats up a lot.
We were working on I was working with a friend of mine on this one product, and we used video, like a video model, like a local model, to actually analyze vision also and video as well, and it worked flawlessly. There's no problem at all. No data going anywhere. All on device, running really well. No problem.
I think that's the world where we probably have either requirement for this, where we use the cloud if the models become cheap enough, or we start running our own this thing. So that probably is this thing. But Srijan, you were making a good point about energy. Like, so in terms of AI, like I think energy and compute are the two major inputs, right? And of course, data, training data. But energy and compute are the two like sort of physical world resources that we need. So energy prices have also started going up. Whenever there's a new data center coming up, Microsoft was announcing that they're going to subsidize or match any rise in electricity cost because of the data center coming in that region. So that is also going to be a big thing that people start worrying about. Is that something that you've thought about?
Dude, like I was talking to a friend of mine who actually works in the power sector. He works with GE on their turbines and gas turbines division, and he was telling me that again, because they are backed up with orders paid in advance for the next decade, which has never happened before, right? And I mean, it's insane. And he was just telling me, he said, power sector is going to see such massive uptick over the next like decade or 2 decades. It's going to be insane. And it's the same story with like fission, right? You have a bunch of people working on fission, and I don't know. I feel like it is something that is a question of when, not if, in terms of power efficiency. Like we will definitely do it, because we are, I mean, humans, as we discussed, like humans are great at backing themselves into corners and then finding a way out of them. And I think you studied a lot of history, so you'll be able to all the times that it has happened before, right? And every time we do this, we will back ourselves into a corner. Somewhere we'll be like, oh, energy is so hard to get, fuel prices will rise up, and then suddenly we'll discover 8 new wells and 8 like the largest wells of oil, and then suddenly we're like, okay, it's fine for the next 20 years. We'll figure it out. Something or the other will happen.
Solar and all of those things will come up. But actually sometimes like I think all of these super cycles, the issue is that you might build for literally the peak, but that peak maybe hits once and then you're like downstream. I don't know if people will need compute or like energy in that much resources as you prepared for the peak. So I think those are things that I mean, super cycle ke saath, it's very hard to predict what the future looks like. But seems like that what is happening in this world of AI is that it's going to be superfluous. Like I think once we hit a certain scale, I think there's going to be, I mean, crazy demand for general intelligence across devices and across things. But I think something to think about is geopolitics and export controls as well. NVIDIA ko mana kar diya tha to give chips to China. So I think, I mean, NVIDIA guy was, of course, making a comment on how we've allowed China to actually have their own moment where they start thinking about building their own chips. So Huawei
Chips.
chips are almost 70% good, which are actually good enough for running their models and doing their own stuff in AI, which I think is, I mean, what was the push needed? Like, I mean, if you block any of this import coming into India, then maybe that pushes India to do and follow the same path as well and remove regulatory red tape to like allow all of this to happen in a big way. Have you guys played around with like Kimi or DeepSeek?
I used DeepSeek initially when it came out, but not since. I mean, Anthropic gets all of my money, bro.
Yeah.
Basically, they get all of it. I don't know what happened, but with the API, everything is linked to the Anthropic API, and it's just.
But as a company, in all honesty, especially with InfoSec guardrails, like at least we have a mandate internally that there are only certain vendors that will allow the individuals to use, especially on company devices that are running production data and like that touches our code base, etc. And honestly, Anthropic, OpenAI are literally the two, more or less, right? Or even for coding like Cursor, Composer, etc. models in general. DeepSeek, etc. I know people were pretty, buoyant about it when it first came. Everyone wanted to make a, like some sort of an agent. But you look at the vulnerabilities that are also getting introduced because of a lot of these open models that are on Hugging Face, etc. And people want to try them out. I mean, there's no way for you to really ensure that nothing really penetrates and results into a material breach, etc. So at least as an organization, we've added a lot of those guardrails, and so therefore haven't really used a lot of these models per se. But as Srijan said, recently over the weekend, I created. It's been 2 weeks now. I created like a small agent, right, just to kind of route all of the incoming questions that people ask me to like the relevant folks, etc. Anthropic all the way. It just has the trust, honestly, as of today.
And that I think is the America model, man. Like I think just brute force so much into these closed models, and now I think today there was a news that OpenAI is giving 5% of their company to Donald Trump, USA. So, man, they're like just brute force capital and scale, basically hyper scalar capex, and then basically buy up everything part of the stack, and then just dominate the world with like these best closed source models. And like, I mean, it's capitalism pro max. And then China is, I think, more system level optimization where low cost efficiency at scale, being self-reliant, and because they have their own closed ecosystem. So I think it's interesting to see that US versus China sort of war playing out. You've not seen anything in Russia, right, Abhi? In the AI?
No,
Nothing.
not that. I mean, at least not in the spotlight. But hey, one country is going really unnoticed in all of this, right? South Korea, Samsung, Hynix, both Korean companies. So basically, out of like, so okay, so I mean, for our audience as well, right? Like, what is yeah, so just to kind of explain this to our audience, like why this kind of like shortfall is really occurring now. Basically, there are three major producers of memory in the world: Samsung, Hynix, and Micron. Micron is US, and Samsung and Hynix are Korean companies. Basically, the three companies amongst them control, I believe, 95% of the market share of memory. Right now, which is,
Insane.
that's I think just egregiously, weirdly monopolistic at a global
Peter Thiel
level.
would be
And
happy.
I mean,
Peter
what
Thiel
the
would
hell?
be happy. Believe in monopolies.
Mm. But yeah, so basically, now in order to keep the R&D up, within the hyperscalers and the AI race for the next models, etc., the data centers require something called a high-powered memory, right? HBM, essentially. Now, for us consumers, the normal consumers per se, right? DRAM is everything that you find in your local devices, phones, laptops, etc. But the manufacturers are mostly these three companies. Now, basically, it's a commercial and a business decision. Do they end up doubling down on DRAM, right, which affects the consumer markets, or do they build these high-powered chips that are pretty critical to data center operations? The margins are a lot higher, right? And it's a big commercial upswing for these manufacturers as well. And as we've discussed, right, these hyperscalers, like Meta, Facebook, Google, etc. of the world have already signed multi-year contracts. So as of today, you call them fabs, like factories that are producing the memory and the chips, etc. Right? So they are anyway just leaning towards the AI data center commitments, which is why the consumers are really kind of facing a backlash. And out of all of this, if you think about, sure, like China is, I mean, honestly, I don't even know if that's really going to work out well, because, with Trump waking up tomorrow and then, like, I don't know, just kind of tweeting out some other tariff and, like that triggering, like, just like egos again. So like, I don't know if like that's a cycle that anyone really wants to kind of get into per se. But Korea essentially is why I wanted to kind of call out, is actually like a sleeper kind of winner amidst all of this that's happening. Because Taiwan, of course, right? If you look at it, Apple and Samsung are two interesting companies that are actually vertical players, right? They own the products and they own, some sort of like the hardware, industrial move as well. So clearly a lot more insulated compared to some of the other peers, right, in their cohort per se. So yeah.
Do you think, and I don't know enough about this, but do you think like how Apple reduced reliance on Intel and started building like its own Apple Silicon? Do you think Apple could actually set up, because they have cash in the bank, right? And we saw with Tesla, like Tesla set up, and XA I think has set up its own terafab for building chipsets, right? Do you think Apple could also get into building chipsets for themselves? I mean, for building RAM?
I don't know. Apple and so Apple, and I'm just going to call Musk because Musk is eponymous with every company that he is, right? So he's an entity of his own. Like these kind of swinging moves, right? They fit Elon Musk only, right? Like, you guys can't do this, so I'm going to take the charge and I'm going to create terafab, right? And I'm going to figure this out. In fact, I think even he mentioned that it's going to take a 9-month cycle to design like their latest chip, etc. But then it's going to take another 2-3 years to actually put it into production and bring it into the hands of customers, which is why this is going to continue till like 2028, 2029, essentially, like, I mean, in general. But I believe Apple hasn't really played these moves too much, right? Like, I think Apple just has so much of commercial deep trade with a lot of these OEMs. I mean, most likely they focus on focus. They focus on the things that they're really like fantastic at. They understand, they have cash flow reserves. So the ability for them to make these contracts work out, I think, is something that historically they've really done. Most likely they will figure something. I mean, but do they really have to, as well, is my question. They already have forward-looking contracts, right? It's because of the companies like Apple, Meta, etc., which is why the rest of the world is, like, suffering of sorts, right? So I don't know if they really have to make that move. At least that's my personal understanding, but out of my pay
coming
grade.
back to agenda item, like, I think this is one big point, because AI-induced anxiety is very real for a lot of people, because I think economic safety in the future is something that people will think about. Because, I mean, if everyone is making the argument that AI is taking away like jobs and stuff, then how should people think about this world that's coming up? Like, what can they do, and what are the effects on the economy? Because everyone's making predictions that even though AI is taking away jobs, but I think that's just a false alarm, because that's probably just like regular churn that's happening anyway. So I think the doomsayers are just like, I mean, blowing everything up, because even if AI is taking away jobs, it's creating new jobs, or bodies are still needed. Like, employees are still needed for different kinds of skills within the company. Like, there is not been like credible reports of agents. I mean, they're doing, of course, more work. They're making existing people more efficient, but is it truly replacing entire departments at scale, or these are just experiments? Thoughts on that?
Srijin, you want to go first?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, the model of one person unicorn company, right? I mean, that, so essentially, effectively, what we're saying is that an organization which is a living organism of sorts, pretty much just being run by one individual, and agents and AI doing most amount of work, which means letting go of individuals like human beings essentially. That chatter, of course, right, has been, like within the tech startup ecosystem has like it's been there, it's been spoken about, etc. And I believe we actually saw the first 1% unicorn emerge, if I'm not wrong, right? Like it was, at least on Twitter, people were talking about it over the last like 2-3 months. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen way too often enough. um, the direct impact, most likely is going to be in the new age companies that are being built. But those companies are way too small as of today for any drastic GDP impact, in all honesty. Right? Your large employers are still your institutions that have been around for years. Right. And I mean, this sudden shift essentially is not, it's I mean, it's going to take a long time for them to kind of be so radical in their ethos that, you know what, we don't need to hire 20,000, 30,000 people in one single country. We could reduce it to a fraction, because they themselves have so much of considerations. I'm talking about companies like even in India, like TCS, Infosys, so on and so forth. They have so many considerations, the kind of, like softwares they can use, the kind of access controls that people need to have, the kind of models, right, that could potentially get access, and are their customers going to be okay with it because they have government contracts and so on and so forth, right? So there's a lot of consideration. I don't think we're going to see any immediate tectonic movement, which is why the layoff spike and people relating that to AI, that's honestly a false positive, right? Because the ones that make those moves in the at a macro level aren't the ones who are also adopting that paradigm immediately. The ones who are usually the startups, right? And in that sphere, which is like the long tail of new companies that are being built out, you already do see that DNA, right? Like today, so I was telling someone, I received a portfolio update from a founder, and basically, it's all the good lights, the low lights, etc. And the person said that, oh, we're down from 5 to 4 engineers now. He was not, that was not a cry for help.
Yeah.
That was a pseudo gloat,
And
right? And I was like, holy crap, right? Like, just saw it like literally in front of my eyes. This is not the tech bubble. It's literally a founder that I know, right? Who's building this out. Um, so yeah, so that paradigm is already festering in. People would love to figure this out, and I think the biggest revelation that people have realized is that AI is making already. AI is making the so high agency individuals as of today are the ones who are reaping the benefits of AI the most. If you unfortunately do not have that agency, right, already, then honestly, that this is where token maxing is coming from.
Yeah.
Right, where AI is not really bringing any net new value to whatever work output that you're doing. But high agency individuals have always been, limited in nature, right? And this, I think, at least like speak with every founder, and you'll realize that whatever our earlier outperformers are, AI ke baad, they are still the ones who are continuously outperforming. Right. And that gap is now just increasing massively
Yeah.
between the mediocre and the laggards versus the outperformers who already existed, and now like them, like maybe outperforming 3x more
Yeah.
than what they could. To ye ho to jayega. And I don't think we're going to see this in the headlines because, as I said, the large employments aren't happening, from the young companies, at least as of now. I mean, yeah, that's what I've understood so far.
I also feel that like this point that you made, right, about like revenue per employee is, I think, gonna be like a very headline figure going forward. And my personal thesis on this entire thing, there are two things that I've thought about on this. Like one is, I don't think large companies are going to, as you said, like I don't think they're going to really be affected a lot. And I think a lot of this, the layoffs and everything is a result of the overhiring that happened in the past, let's say 5 years or something, and it's just a good excuse to sort of let people go and blame it on AI or whatever else it is. But there is always a lot of overhiring during SERP, right? And it has to now equalize and normalize at some point in time, and it was that. I also feel like large organizations, need accountability more, right? Like otherwise there's no point of like why does one email need to go to 10 people? Just so that there is accountability for everybody to know that, hey, I am doing this, and if something goes wrong, all 10 of us were in the loop about this, right? And it's never going to stop. It's why McKinsey gets paid whatever money they get paid from New York City to tell them that, hey, actually you should put more trash cans to solve the garbage problem. Same problem, right? Like this is not going to go away. But what is more interesting, I feel like with AI, and this is the same point that you made about high agency individuals, is that you're going to see a lot more, maybe not one-person unicorns, but a lot more of companies that sort of function like craftsmen's guilds, like they used to in the earlier days, where you have like a small team of highly motivated, highly like cross sort of pollinated like technologists who are working for a common goal. And these are like how the craftsmen's guilds of the earlier years used to be like, right? Like you have these guys who are very motivated towards a particular goal. Each person is supercharged with AI. You don't need a lot of employees. You're just getting together and doing great work, right? And this is sort of the individual thesis of the Silicon Valley small business theory that I think Anu had put out, right, a few years ago, which is you don't need a lot of capital today to start a company, and today it's even lesser, right? And you look at Midjourney, right? They got to maybe like $500 million of revenue, annual revenue, with like I think 50 people or 100 people or something like that. And today that cash and that lack of accountability towards any external party is what is making them even dabble in something like building an alternative to an MRI. And that I feel is going to be the greatest thing that this is going to unlock, because it's going to like lead to a lot of very talented and very hardworking high agency individual contributors, people who have still now sort of not known how to place themselves into orgs, actually just band together and be like, hey, actually we can just do this ourselves and we can just build the shit that we want to build. And that I think is going to be amazing going forward, because when very motivated, very talented people come together to build stuff from different domains, interesting stuff always comes out, because the best things that have come out have always been on the fringes or on the intersection of things, right? So that's what I think.
Very super interesting point to make, but I think also the keyword being built. Like I think India will have to find its own place in this whole thing, and we'll come to that. There's this Leopold. I mean, have you read about this guy? Leopold,
Yeah.
who started hedge fund, 24-year, fired from OpenAI, and then basically puts out this document called Situational Awareness, where he's basically taken a view on how AGI is coming by 2027 or earlier, and things that it will change. And he's got the Collison brothers, Nat Friedman, and Daniel Ross, and many other top names as LPs, and they've really scaled up their hedge fund. And I think he's taken concentrated bets. Like literally, these are his particular thesis converted into a hedge fund, and it's done exceptionally well. I think now he's over 20 billion, I think, in capital, and going after the physical bottlenecks like power, data centers, optics, storage. Bloom Energy, which was doing fuel cells, I think was a big one that he's taken. But also recently, and also in that document itself, he says that India's entire IT export industry is basically now a chat GPT token, and that affects us in a big way, because you saw that big move that happened in terms of the foreign exchange, where USD went from X to 94, 95, 97, even 96 in the middle. So all of this will affect us, because Infosys and IT, and Infosys is just a short form for all the other IT export services. It's going to be problematic for us unless we find out that how can we build our own capabilities, export something else, build defensibility there, because otherwise our foreign exchange reserves are going to be tested continuously. So I think that is something to think about. But yeah.
Funnily enough, there was a news that came out, I believe last month or maybe whatever, that OpenAI, for example, recently partnered with Infosys, right? So, and that was crazy, because I mean, like they're partnering to figure out how to deploy AI strategically into these companies, right?
Yes.
Deploy. So they are looking for this forward deployment partnerships across industries, and India is just a great consumer example. They gave away ChatGPT Go for free to the entire country in India.
Yeah.
So they're thinking of us as deployment or consumer partners, but unless we can build exclusive capabilities, we've been tagging data for OpenAI and many others globally now for a long time. Like even Meta ka back office moderation, I think runs from India, also some part of it across Africa and Southeast Asia, but still export in a big way. Like IT export is $250 billion or more.
Yeah.
So that,
But
I think,
it will move to deployment for sure. Like the per hourly thing will shift from that to actually outcome based. And there are like one or two companies that I sort of work with, and like I know who are personally moving, and they're large teams, right? And even real fast, I think Sidhu's company and one other company that I work with, Desi Grew, like large orgs, like 2,000 people orgs, all moving towards deployment and outcome focused, just engineering. There is no services that are going out now.
all right. So I think for our listeners, I know
In fact, recently,
3 people just shooting the shot. So we'll just recap quickly. So I think it's just basically what you're seeing on the screen. But I hope you enjoyed this format. Any final closing thoughts, Fahd?
Man, just I think like the only thing I would think of from a personal individual level is to really focus on like craft mastery, and just because that's the one thing that you cannot take away. And I also feel like there's a lot of FOMO that is happening with people, that, oh my God, where did the, there's so much changing, what is going to happen, this, that, the other. I just feel like this is the beginning. And there was this very interesting podcast, I think yesterday it came out, Dialectic podcast. So I think Tyler Coben and Nabil were on this yesterday. Great. I haven't heard the whole thing. I just saw the headlines on it, but they made such a good point that this is the beginning. Pace yourself. It will, if you feel like you're lagging behind, this is just the beginning. Wait and watch. There is way too much to unfold.
True. And I mean, people think and focus on the models and stuff, but everything else is a trade. Like, I think most of life, I think you just have to position yourself. And if you're early to a particular trade, I think it might play out in your favor as well. Kashish, closing thoughts from you?
On a lighter note, if you are a tech hoarder like myself, which means that you have all your last like Apple devices stored somewhere and you've been, taking shit from your family, right? I think it's gonna pay off, guys. It's your moment to shine. Go in the secondary markets and enjoy those 2x, 3x benefits as
I
of
had a
today.
feeling you're going to ask people to ship you some of that stuff and sell you gold prices. All right.
Do
This was
that as
fun. I
well.
hope you guys enjoyed this as well. I mean, leave your comments in the comment section and let us know what we can chat about next. Thank you again for tuning in. Bye-bye.